Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Shona Lindsay and I'm joined here by two resident property experts. We have Simon Zutshi, who is the founder of the Property Investors Network.
Hello.
Hello there, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I have Stefano Lucatello, who is an international property lawyer, a senior partner of Cobalt Law International Lawyers.
Hello, Shona.
Hi, and by video link we have Tony Gimple, who is the founding director of Tax For Landlords. Hi, Tony. So we're going to go straight on with a question for you, Simon, if that's okay. I keep getting invitations to attend evening courses and networking events for people interested in buying properties. When I go online, there are people who say how great they are and others who say they're just designed to find people who've got some spare money to invest. What I really want is to learn how to invest myself and how can I find out more without just wasting my time.
Okay, so it's really good that they want to learn how to invest because any idiot can buy a property and many idiots do buy property.
Yeah.
So you've got to learn what to buy, where to buy, how to rent it out, etc. And so there are lots of different organisations that run evening and weekend events. Some of them will absolutely get a load of people in the room and try and sell property to them. You should never go to an event and buy property because you always need to do your own due diligence. And there are some organisations who will go and they will have a free event and they'll try and sell you some training. I believe investing in yourself is a really good thing to do, but make sure if you're going to buy something, there's always a money back guarantee and there's a cooling off period in case you decide not to buy, because some do use fairly strong sales tactics.
Right.
And there are some events that don't have a hard sell. There are a bunch of people getting together who want to learn from each other, who want to listen to people who are more experienced. So I'd suggest actually going online, finding some and going along and finding out for yourself. Very often reviews online are really good, but sometimes people have hidden agendas and sometimes people are very critical of things they've not actually attended themselves. So be prepared. If you're going to spend a lot of money investing in property, be prepared you need to spend some time doing some due diligence, doing some research, and if you can learn from someone else's mistakes, that's far, far more cost effective than making expensive mistakes yourself. So if you ask any experienced landlord, have they made mistakes? If they're honest, they'll say, yes, they have. I made lots of mistakes when I started back in 1995, and I wish there had been someone who could have shown me how to invest that would have saved me a huge amount of time and money and effort by doing it in the right way in the first place. So I think investing in yourself is really, really important, but be selective. Go and check out all the people in your area and find the people who you resonate with and who've got a track record of helping other people achieve what you want to achieve.
But there's no real way for our viewer to know before they've got to this meeting whether it's a real one or whether
Worst case scenario, you waste a couple of hours. And a good thing to do if you're worried about someone trying to sell you property or sell you a course, leave all your credit cards at home so you can't sign up for something. So you just go along, you take the information. And sometimes people say, oh, you've got to sign up now, tonight. Well, guess what? If you call them next day, I'm pretty sure you'll still be able to get the deal. Yeah. So don't think you have to go and buy that night, but go and check things out for yourself. And you are the best judge for yourself.
You'll know pretty soon on into the seminar whether it's a high pressurized sale exercise or whether it's actually a proper training, learning exercise of how to do it. I have a friend who does this all day long and he gives up his time to lots of newbies to help them. He goes along to auctions with them, he goes along and helps them set up the HMOs, but that's very few. And he doesn't want anything in return. But he knows that by doing that he builds his own reputation. And has done so for the last 10 or 15 years. Yeah.
And do some of these organisations, they actually charge you an entrance fee? Should you automatically be worried about that, or is that just possibly a way of making these meetings be able to go ahead?
Actually, it's probably the reverse. If someone is letting you come to an event for free and they're paying for a hotel and sound and lighting and stuff, they probably want to sell you something because they have to get that money back. Whereas if someone is actually charging you a fee, they're probably giving you some value. And that's a rough approximation, right. But I would say actually, and you've got to remember this as well. Sometimes when things are free, people don't value them. Whereas if someone spent, £20 to go to a network meeting, guess what? You're going to put off all the complete dreamers and wasters who are never going to do anything anyway. And actually, because people have had to pay to be there, you probably got a slightly better quality of person in the room with whom you want to connect and network with, rather than people who are attracted to a free event because they want the free tea and biscuits.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, Stefano, I have a question for you. The people here are moving from Canada to Italy next year. Are there any specific considerations when moving to Italy from Canada that they should know about?
Not really.
As simple as that.
Next question.
Visas or...
No. Coming from Canada, they will have to make sure that they can live within the European Union. Mm-hmm. It's usually the case that people from North America can trace some form of historic lineage back to Europe. So if you have that benefit of Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, use it. I would say to them, apply for this historic passport, maybe from your mother's side, your father's side. Get it because, of course, that will give you automatic right to reside within the European Union. If you're coming from Canada or North America generally, you will have to apply for your residence. So you can come for up to 90 days, like anyone in the world can in any European Union country. And before the end of 90 days, if it's your intention to stay there permanently, then you will have to apply for a visa to remain, almost the equivalent of an indefinite leave to remain, but their equivalent, and then hope that you can get that. Now, you will have to prove, by the sounds of it, if they're coming from Canada, perhaps they're people of, let's say, middle age, 50s, 60s, they will have gone past all the schemes that apply, and therefore you will have to show that you can maintain yourself, you will not be a burden on the state, that you'll have your own health insurance. That is a must. Wherever you move to in Europe, from anywhere outside of Europe, you must have your own health insurance, and you must prove that. There will be a list of things that they will have to prove, and they will have to prove to the authorities, and if they go through those lists, or that list, and they prove everything, then they will be granted a visa, and they can stay. Having got their visa, they can then stay for 5 years, and before the end of at the end of 5 years, they can then apply for permanent citizenship if they want to, in this case of Italy. But no, not really. There isn't anything. Their main thing is that they will have to get initial residence, then the indefinite leave to remain, and then they can apply for citizenship or nationality if they wish to. I mean, I will not necessarily do it, but you can do it. It's your indefinite leave to remain, and which you'll get after 5 years.
And are there any higher tax costs for someone whose money has come from a foreign country, they're non-domicile?
Not really.
No?
I mean, actually, if they were to come to Italy and they want to work, there is, under the new government that's come in recently, there is now they're bringing in a single tax rate band of 15%. Doesn't matter how much or little you earn, they're bringing in this 15% tax band, which means that multimillionaires will be paying 15%.
1.5?
Yes, 1.5.
Wow.
Because of the new government that wants to attract business and start refloating Italy and bring it back to what it used to be. But no, I mean, in Italy, we welcome people. It's usually very often the case that people coming from North America have got some sort of historic link to Italy.
Bringing
Mother,
them back,
grandfather,
yes.
mother, and especially the Americans from New York. There's been the last 10 or 15 years, there's lots of New Yorkers who are going back to Sicily and to Naples, where their origins are from, and they like this sense of being, of belonging back with Italy. And I have to say to you, we've got a much better life in Italy than they have in Canada.
You're allowed to say that.
Absolutely, as an Italian.
So, Tony, I'm going to come to you. This is a question from somebody who wants to run their business from home. They want to know if they can claim household repairs on their tax return.
Pretty typical question. Anybody used to running their business from home will know that they can claim the proportion of the workspace on their return. So if you've got, say, a 4-bedroom property, you're using one as your office. So the space repairs and improvements that relate to that proportion of the house can be then claimed. You have to be a little bit careful, though. Sometimes it can have council tax implications. In slightly more detail, if it's a simple home office, it's not normally a problem. However, if you're trying to claim too much, it's quite possible that the local authority might try and rate it as commercial, and increase how much you've got to pay in council tax. So talk to your existing accountant and make sure you're reasonable in your claim and can support it properly.
Super. Thanks very much. Well, we're heading now into a break, but do join us afterwards as we'll have lots more questions and lots more expert advice from our wonderful experts here in the studio. Hello and welcome back to Property Question Time. I'm Shona Lindsay and with me here I have Simon Zutshi.
Hello.
Stefano Lucatello.
Hello.
And Tony Gimple. So straight to you, Simon, if I may. Can anyone tell me, when letting out my spare bedrooms on short-term agreements, does that make me, I love this, does this make me a proper landlady? And what does that mean?
Well, I'm not quite sure what a proper landlady is, actually. We can look at this a couple of different ways. If you are renting out property, yes, you are a landlady or a landlord. As far as HMRC is concerned, you have a property business, and on your tax return, you'll have a separate page that is for property and land, and you should declare the income you get from renting your room out. However, there is a rent-a-room allowance of £7,500. So depending where you are and how much rent you charge, that might be from one tenant, or if you rent out a couple of rooms, it might be from a couple of tenants. So yes, you are a landlady. You would not have a standard AST contract, which is what you have in most rental properties. It's a bit more, they're a lodger, it's a bit more like a license. If they don't pay, you can get them out, but you must make sure you have a contract. I suggest actually you probably have insurance as well, because someone's living in your property. If they had an accident in your property, they might want to try and sue you if you didn't have a handrail on the stairs and things that you'd have in a rental property, for example, you might have in your own home. So yeah, treat it like you are a proper landlady, treat it like a business, make sure you have the correct insurance, make sure you fulfill all your obligations, and also be choosy who you rent your rooms out to, because they're living in your home, they're kind of in your space. It might be family, might be friends, might be people you don't know, but it is a great way to bring extra revenue in, but just make sure you do it properly.
You talked about insurance there. What
Yes.
about, how would it affect your contents insurance? Might that go up if there's other people living in the house?
I don't know, actually, to be perfectly honest, but best thing to do is contact an insurance broker who specialises in landlord insurance. It's different from normal household insurance. And as long as you tell the insurance company how the property is being used, that's the most important thing. They don't like it if you've just got house insurance and you're renting it out, you probably wouldn't be covered. Mm-hmm. So be very open and honest with the insurance company. And it's probably best not to have the insurance with the mortgage company with whom you have the mortgage. Get specialist insurance who understand you're renting the property out. You want landlord public liability insurance as well as contents, and building insurance as well.
Does she need to tell her her mortgage lender if she's renting?
I don't know. She could check on her
I've
mortgage.
really put you on the spot, haven't I?
You have? Yeah, I don't know.
I would say yes, Simon.
I think she probably does.
Yes.
And actually, most lenders might be okay with that, but they have their terms and conditions. Mm-hmm. There is a view that, you should really advise your mortgage company if you do anything, because you want to adhere to, it's not a legal requirement, but worst case scenario, they could say, actually, you're not using the property the right way, we want you to repay the mortgage. That's the worst that can happen, really. But there's another school to say that actually, as long as the mortgage company receives their payments every single month and they get their money back at the end and it's insured properly, they sometimes don't really mind. They're worried about the people who are not paying the mortgage.
Right.
But yeah, technically, I think you probably should inform
And the other thing
the
is, of
mortgage
course,
company.
is that some lenders would class you as a commercial mortgage if you do start taking tenants in, because they would change also the rate of interest.
Yes,
Or they could
because
change the rate of
they
interest.
would.
Again, you're much better to speak to them and
A
have that
residential
conversation.
mortgage. See, but the thing is, you can't get a buy-to-let mortgage and then live in that
No,
property.
because you're living
So
there.
you probably would still have a residential mortgage and rent the rooms out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not unusual. I mean, the government have introduced, well, they've had for many, many years rent room schemes. So it's not as if you're doing something that's illegal or shouldn't be done. In fact, the government have been encouraging people to do this because they recognise we have a housing shortage in the UK.
But does that conflict with the mortgagee that says you can't have anyone else in?
Well, it depends. It depends if they say that or not. What's to stop them saying if you've got a family member coming
Well,
into
it's
the
a family
property,
member. I don't think there's a problem. If it's not a family member, if you take a student in from the local university.
But so is it a family member who's living free? Or what about if you had a family member who's a distant relative and you actually charge them rent?
It's the same thing, isn't it? Whether it's somebody you've met
Exactly.
before
So is
or
it
not.
because they're related? Is because you're actually charging rent? I would suggest if you're charging rent, it's then a commercial venture, and probably most lenders might want to try and increase the amount that you're paying because maybe it's seen more risky, really.
You mentioned actually the rent-a-room scheme. There is actually a fantastic fact sheet. I was looking at it just the other day on the government website, on government.uk.
Yep.
And it's entitled Letting Rooms in Your House. So there's probably quite a lot of information on there.
That's a very good place to start.
Yeah. Okay.
And you could always put an inquiry into, if I was interested in doing this, how would you view it? And some lenders, I'm sure, say that's fine, just let us know. Some will say, oh, you can't do that. Just speak to them and see what they say.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, one for you, Stefano. We are moving to Puglia in January and are naturally concerned about the rights of UK citizens to live and work in Italy after Brexit. My parents are Irish, so I can apply for dual Irish nationality and passport, so presumably I won't be affected by Brexit. But where does this leave my husband? My question basically is, as he is my spouse, is he granted the same rights as me as I am, in effect, an EU citizen?
Right. If she is an ERA citizen, a Southern Ireland citizen, she can apply for nationality, get a passport, no problem. I can't remember whether, on so doing, her husband would also, as her spouse, get automatic Irish nationality, or whether there has to be a period of time from that moment into the future that has to elapse before he can also apply. And I'm not sure the answer to the question. I've done lots of certifying of documentation in the last 18 months since Brexit has come about for people looking for their Irish nationality and going back and tracing it and saying, I want to become an Irish national because I want to protect my future. I would urge anyone who, like me, has foreign ancestral history to go and get, if they possibly can, a second or third, in some cases, passport, because that will assist you at this time of confusion in 2019 when Brexit will happen. So that's very, very important. But as I say, I'm not sure if by the wife becoming a Southern Irish citizen that her husband follows suit automatically. As regards rights for works, to work in Italy, what nationality was her husband?
He's
Does it
UK.
say? UK, right, family. Right. If he goes to Italy, both of them will have the right, as United Kingdom citizens and European Union citizens, the right to freedom of services, goods and work, and they can be employed. My view is that they should go to Puglia as soon as possible, that they should establish themselves in Italy as soon as possible, get into the system, start paying tax, start working, whatever, get their residence apply for their residence after 90 days and become first residence holders of Italy and stay there. I don't think that once Brexit comes about that they will be disadvantaged like many people think that will be. I don't think for 1 minute that Italy, France, Spain, Portugal and everywhere else where English people have gone,
so
many will be disadvantaged, and vice versa. It would be a disadvantage to the United Kingdom to do it to foreigners. In fact, they're now backing out. And it would be a disadvantage for foreign governments to do it to United Kingdom citizens who have moved to that particular country. I don't think things will change, Shona, very much from what we have now. I think the name will change and possibly the procedures will change, but I think the rights that have been established now will remain.
Possibly a wee bit more paperwork.
Possibly. If in the case of Italy, it will be.
Yeah, the UK government has said they don't want people, foreign workers to be leaving the country because you need foreign workers here. And I'm sure the UK government don't want all the old people living in Europe coming back to the UK. So I think there's going to be a certain status quo.
Well, I mean, for example, my mum's been in England since 1956.
Right.
She has Italian nationality. She's not English. She doesn't have United Kingdom nationality. So do I have to go through this procedure to get her registered so they won't throw her out of the country? She's only 90, but there we go. You know, she poses a security threat to the United Kingdom government.
Yeah,
at the age of 90. So
you mentioned about going back through your ancestry.
Yes.
How far back do you know?
grandfather, grandmother.
Right. Okay.
Certainly in the case of Italian citizenship, if you want that, you go back as far as your grandfather and grandmother. And it's usually the case that you don't have to go back any further. It's grandfather and grandmother.
Hi Tony, a question for you. I have recently moved into a private rented house. First time for me and first time for my landlord. I'm going to be claiming housing benefit as I am long-term sick. My landlord has asked me to find out if he will have to pay tax on my rent. He is also on long-term sick, is now on half wages and not receiving any benefits. He moved in with his girlfriend so that he could rent his house out to pay his mortgage. Any advice?
Yeah, okay. Yes, in raw terms, you have to pay tax on how much you earn. And that will be on the gross amount of rent received. I think you should be very careful with this one. If your name's on the AST, you pay the rent, and don't even think about trying to accommodate the landlord by splitting the payments just to suit his affairs. You could both end up in serious trouble as a result.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. Right, well, that is all we've got time for today. But please do come through with any emails that you may have. Send your questions via the website, which is www.property-tv.co.uk, or by direct email, which is info@propertytelevision.tv. Just remains for me to say thank you to our wonderful guests, to Simon Zutshi.
Thank you.
To Stefano Lucatello.
Thank you.
And to Tony Gimple. I'm Shona Lindsay. Join us again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.